Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Glen Kuiper Show. It is a Tuesday night. We were there with you last night. Dave Fleming was awesome. We're back with you tonight, and we got a lot to cover. You know the drill. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and most of all, I love getting you guys comments about the things that I'm talking about, whether you agree with me or not. But you know how I operate now. I like to get you guys involved and get your thoughts, and I'd like to hear some of your ideas on the subjects we're talking about tonight. We're going to hit maybe some rumors about a pitching coach for the Giants. We'll talk about that in just a second. We're going to talk about the upcoming winter meetings, some teams that I'm interested to see what they do. We're going to continue our National League West kind of off-season preview. We did the Diamondbacks last week. We're going to do the Padres tonight. And we are also going to find out how the Giants going to get two starting pitchers. How are they going to do it? Trades, free agents. We'll kick that around as well. And we will finish the show with an NFL segment. Kind of start looking at the playoff picture a little bit, see where the Niners are in that NFC playoff picture. So that is what we have for you tonight. Good show, busy show. So let's get started. So reports came out. The first time I saw something was just a couple of hours ago on social media. So I haven't seen anything official yet, but the reports are that the San Francisco Giants have hired a new pitching coach by the name of Justin Message. Justin Message. Don't know much about him, folks. I really don't. But that is what is starting to come out now. Last name is spelled Meccage. We're told it's pronounced Message. He's 45 years old, assistant pitching coach with the Pirates for a couple of years, and then the bullpen coach with the Pirates for 5 years. Got let go by the Pirates, was with the Milwaukee Brewers AAA affiliate as a pitching coach last year. And that is who, according to reports, the Giants have hired as their new pitching coach. So, again, nothing official yet. So I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on it because I want to make sure that this is indeed the case. But they're not just rumors. There's people starting to report this. But nobody from the Giants has reported this. So, anyways, if we hear anything during the show, we'll certainly pass it on. But it looks like that the Giants may have got their pitching coach, Justin Message. So if that is the case, so that checks that box. And again, if this is indeed the case. So you got Tingler as the bench coach, Hunter Mentz as the hitting coach, Oscar Bernard as the assistant hitting coach, and now possibly a Justin Message as the pitching coach. So you still need a third base coach, first base coach. You'll need an assistant pitching coach and that kind of stuff. But I heard Tony Vitello on the MLB Network this morning, and he did say that they were getting very close to getting the whole staff put together. And so again, maybe this week we'll get a couple more additions. So just keep your ears open on Justin Message if this is indeed the case, and let's hope so. And we will see if the Giants indeed hooked up Justin Message as their pitching coach. So Giants, the winter meetings get started, right? It's about 3 weeks. In fact, 3 weeks from right now, the winter meetings will be going on. Big deal. Orlando, Florida, everybody's there. Everybody in the baseball world is there, including general managers and agents, and they talk trade, they talk free agent contracts. Pretty cool deal, pretty intense for maybe 3 or 4 days, and a lot of things happen at these winter meetings. So what I wanted to do each of the next 3 weeks leading up to the winter meetings for the Giants is kind of go over the areas where we think they need to improve. And how are they going to do that? What are some things they could do? What are some names that are out there? And there's a ton of names, right? We all know that. And I'm going to throw some out there. I want you guys to throw some out there. But tonight I wanted to start and concentrate on how can the Giants get two starting pitchers. I think we all agree they need two starting pitchers, right? So let's kick around some ideas on how they can do that. And maybe next week we'll talk about how can they improve the outfield defense. We'll do that all kind of leading up to the winter meeting. So, but tonight let's kick around some things as far as starting pitchers go. Giants need two. Okay. So you can get them by a trade. You can get them by a free agent signing. You can get them by international signings. So there's many, many different ways. And we've all seen the list of pitchers that are out there. It's a huge, I mean, the free agent list is huge. And then you got significant guys that you could probably get in a trade as well. So, so just kind of wanted to look at the different ways that the Giants could acquire not just one, but two. So let's start with trades, because we're seeing some pretty good names out there. But trade is what it is. You're giving something to the other team, and you don't want to give up too much. And a name that I wanted to kick around a little bit was Sonny Gray, and we've seen this out there before with Sonny Gray. He's in the final year of a 3-year, $75 million contract. And the contract itself was backloaded. Backloaded meaning in this final year, 2026 being the final year of the 3-year deal, the salary's big. He's guaranteed $35 million in 2026. So that's a big hit, right? But it's a 1-year commitment, okay? There is a mutual option for 2027 in his contract. A mutual option is simply the player would have to say, yeah, I want to come back. The team would have to say, yeah, we want you back. They mutually agree. Boom, boom. Contract is already in place, and the mutual option is picked up. But that would be for 2027. So let's talk about Sonny Gray just a little bit, and then we'll go to some other guys. But he's 36 years old, still a very good pitcher. He won 14 games last year. Still a strikeout guy. He had 201 strikeouts in 180 innings last year. I mean, that's pretty good numbers. He's been around a long time. Again, 36 years old, but durable. His last 3 years, he has made a total of 92 starts. That's pretty good, right? That's an average of around 30 starts a year. You get that from a guy, you got to feel pretty good about it. But he's still a quality starter. So would this be somebody the Giants would look at? I say absolutely. 2 reasons. If you, the San Francisco Giants, are willing to take that whole contract, and it's a lot. That's a lot of money for Sonny Gray, but it's only a 1-year commitment, okay? And you can decide on 2027 when that time comes. The more money you're willing to take on this contract, the less you're going to have to give the St. Louis Cardinals. You all know that's the way it works, right? If the Giants say, hey, you know what? We'll take it all. We'll be responsible for the entire contract. They're not going to have to give the Cardinals any top prospects. They're just not. Mid-level prospects, probably. Now, if the Giants say, listen, we're only going to pay $20 million of that, Cardinals, you got to pay 15. Well, now the Cardinals are going to say, well, we want one of your higher up prospects. That's the way it works. You guys know that. So the question is taking on that whole contract worth it, even though it's a lot? I think it probably is, because you're not going to lose any of your best prospects. You're not going to have to do that to get Sonny Gray if you take all the money. And it's a short commitment, 1 year. And he's still a good enough pitcher that he would slot in nicely behind Webb and Robbie Ray. If you had Webb, Robbie Ray, Sonny Gray. So I like the Sonny Gray idea, and I know that's something that's been thrown out there. But again, there's a lot of teams that would take Sonny Gray in their rotation. But how many are willing to absorb that amount of commitment on a 1 year left on the contract? That's really what it comes down to as an organization. Are you willing to do that? So we'll see. We'll see if that comes out. But I wanted to throw Sonny Gray out there as an idea. There's other guys that, again, we're talking trades here. Joe Ryan from the Minnesota Twins. He's a Bay Area kid. Very talented pitcher. He's 2 years away from free agency. He's 29 years old. He's very, very good. But he's a guy that's going to cost you a top prospect or two, or maybe a player from your major league roster. So that would be a little bit more of an intense trade where you're going to have to give some stuff up to get Joe Ryan, because Joe Ryan is going to be, his contract is not huge. He's got 2 years of arbitration left this year. Next year, So Joe Ryan would be a great fit, but it's going to cost you, it's going to cost you some premium stuff. Maybe a major leaguer and a minor league prospect. Is it worth it? That's what the team is going to have to decide. I like the fact that he's got 2 years away from free agency. Getting a guy for 1 year, that one is hard for me because you'd like to have a guy for a couple years. Freddie Peralta, very good pitcher for the Milwaukee Brewers. They're talking that he's on the trading block, but he would be a 1-year rental. He's very, very good, but you'd only have him for 1 year, and you're going to have to give up stuff for him. The two guys with the Marlins, Alcantara and Cabrera, both very good pitchers. And they're interesting. Alcantara has 2 years left before free agency, so you'd have him for 2 years. Cabrera, who's only 27, he has 3 years left. But to get both of those guys or one of those guys, again, you're going to have to give up a lot. And that's the difficult decision for any organization, including the Giants. Are you willing to give up 2 or 3 prospects, or maybe a couple prospects and somebody from your major league roster to get one of these pitchers? That's the decision you make. Mackenzie Gore's an interesting name. He's the left-hander from the Washington Nationals. His numbers are not great, but you got to kind of take into consideration Nationals have not been good. So his 1-loss record is not very good, but he's a very talented young man. He's 2 years away from free agency. He's only 26 years old. So Gore, that would be a good guy to get. But again, they're going to ask for a lot. And why wouldn't you if you're the Nationals? Why wouldn't you if you're any one of these teams? And there's other names out there. And if anybody has any other names, throw them in the comments. We'll talk about it. These were just a couple that popped up about, how could the Giants get somebody in a trade? Okay. That's the key. Okay. Now we're going to shift gears and say, how can the Giants get somebody in free agency? Well, now you're talking about, the door just swinging wide open here, because there is a ton of free agent pitchers out there that can be had. Okay. But even within that, there's different tiers. Okay. You got the big guys. You got Framber Valdez. You got Ranger Suarez. You got Dylan Cease. These guys are going to get $150 million contracts. I'm not sure the Giants want to do that. I think it would probably be the better move is to shop in the mid-range area. The top tier guys, there's going to be bidding wars for them. And I think there's some real good quality starting pitchers in that mid-range area. The Zach Gallons of the world, right? We hear a lot about Zach Gallen, but there's Merrill Kelly, there's Giolito, there's the Michael King guy who I liked with the Padres, although he was hurt some last year. And you got Scherzer and Verlander, they're the real veterans. So this is an interesting box for me, is that mid-tier free agent pitchers. And there's more. I mean, I just threw out some names. There's a long list there that you can get a quality starter, I think, from that list. And it's not going to cost you, $100 million. So the free agent thing to me is very, very interesting. And then, there's always a group too of pitchers who are looking for a new start. Think about that. That's where you get lucky once in a while. If you can get lucky with somebody like a Walker Buehler, right? Who, when he was healthy with the Dodgers, he was nasty. But then the elbow surgery, and he was with the Red Sox last year. He didn't look good. Dustin May. Remember Dustin May, the Dodgers pitcher with the red hair? Great stuff. But he got traded to Boston, didn't pitch real well there. But these guys, they're not old pitchers. And the stuff is still there, but they're just kind of coming back from injuries. So you gotta kick around that idea. It may not be the sexiest idea, but boy, if you can just get lucky with one of those guys, that is huge. So that's another route you could take. The international pitchers. We're hearing so much about there's a couple of Japanese pitchers that everybody says are really talented. And now you think about Yamamoto and Sasaki and these guys that now we're starting to see how good they are. The Giants could go the international route. That's going to cost you a lot of money. You're going to have to sign these guys to pretty long contracts. You're going to have to pay the posting fee to the team in Japan. So there's a pretty significant financial commitment if you go after one of the top international starters. But we've seen how it can work if you get one of the top guys. So that's another avenue that you can go down, to try to get somebody. And the final one, and this is an interesting one, and this to me, for the betterment of the organization, the Giants organization, this may be the most important one, is internal options. What about these young pitchers that the Giants have who have now all pitched in the big leagues except for Wizenut, Birdsong, Seymour, McDonald? These are the guys I'm talking about. And Blade Tidwell, the guy they got from the Mets, who has not pitched in the big leagues with the Giants, but he has with the Mets. So these guys have all just dabbed in the major leagues. They're all talented. They're all pretty highly thought of prospects, right? Think how important it would be for the Giants organization now and into the future if this group was able to take the next step and become quality major league pitchers, whether it be starters or whether it be in the bullpen. And I say these guys because we've seen them at the big league level a little bit. And we love to talk about free agents. We love to talk about trades. But how big would it be if you could get 2 or 3 of these guys to get to the next level? Figure it out. Now you got young guys, whether bullpen starter, not just for 2020. And you got young guys. Now you got these guys for 4 or 5 years. So the problem is you don't know if they're going to turn the corner. You don't know if they're going to take the next step up, right? But if they could, it would be huge. It would just be huge. You don't have to go out and spend a ton of money, or it would allow you to maybe say, well, let's just go with some one-year contracts so the commitment's not there, knowing that these guys are pushing. These guys are ready to pitch at the big league level. Now, that may be asking too much. That may be not realistic, but the point is that is another option to get starting pitching. But the problem is you don't know which one or if any of them are going to step up and not go back and forth. AAA, big leagues, injuries, lost my control, where they become solid big league starters. These guys are pretty talented, but it's hard to pitch in the big leagues. It's hard to go out there every 5th day and be successful. Can this group of internal options do that? I don't know. But if they could, that would be massive for the Giants organization moving forward into 2026, but well beyond that. But you just don't know. See, that's the problem. You don't know. I think we found out Landon Root is a legitimate big league starter, and that's great. But some of these other guys need to step up, and they need to make the step to not just becoming a major league pitcher, but becoming a quality major league pitcher, whether it be in the bullpen or in the rotation. And that would be massive for the Giants organization. It would keep you away from always having to dive into free agency or always having to look at trades. We just don't know. We just don't know if these guys can do that, if they have it in them, if they're talented enough, if they're good enough. But I just, that to me is part of the equation of how can I get a couple starters, trades, free agents, international guys, make good guys, and then these young pitchers. Come on, guys, there's openings there for you. So tell me, let's get to the comments. I want to find out kind of what you guys are thinking about some of these ideas to get to starting pitchers. All right. Let's see. Okay. All right. Let's check in here. If you're talking about starting pitchers, I wouldn't count Carson Whisenhunt out. I think he's going to have a breakout year this year. That's what I'm talking about. That's what they need. But you're not sure. So do you go into spring training hoping that two of these guys round out your rotation? I don't think you can do that. But SF West, your point is a good one. If these guys can turn the corner, maybe you start to see it in 2026. Well, then you're in such a good spot moving forward with 2 or 3 or 4 young guys to go with Webb, and Ray will be a free agent, and you got Rue. You know what I mean? So you build around that. So we'll see. We'll see. Scherzer should not count as one of them. You can get him, but he's not one of the two. Yeah, well, he may have to be. I don't know. I think it's possible that the Giants make a run at somebody like a Sonny Gray or somebody like that, and then maybe turn and get a Scherzer as the second one. That's a possibility. But I guess you got to decide: is Scherzer or a Verlander? What are they? I mean, if you sign them, they're going to be in your rotation. But Scherzer, who knows what you're going to get, right? I mean, there's still some talent there, I think, but I think he's also probably a fifth starter. So yeah, we'll see. It's interesting. So here's an interesting name, Frankie Montas, right? Well, he just got let go by the Mets, and the Mets owe him $17 million this year. He's going to get that money no matter what. So you could get him for nothing. And I saw Frankie when he was with the A's, and he was really nasty. But again, couldn't stay healthy. But that's sort of the new start guy that I was talking about, right? The Dustin May, Walker Buehler, something like Frankie Montas. You're going to tell me that Frankie Montas couldn't pitch out of the bullpen with his he's high velocity and a great splitter. The problem is he's not consistent with either of them. He never has been. Big, strong guy. Maybe he's a reliever. I don't know, right? You could get Frankie Montas for practically nothing. Interesting. What impact will the possible lockout in 2027 have on this year's market? That's a great question. Some people say it is having an effect. Other people say they haven't really noticed it yet. So, Hugh, I wish I could give you a better answer. But I don't know. I don't know if it will or not. I think in some instances, I think that it will. But you just don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if there's going to be a lockout. But two, you don't know what the CBA, the collective bargaining agreement, you don't know what it's going to look like starting in 2027. What if there's different rules? What if there's some type of salary cap, which I don't think will happen, or what if there's a floor? You got to spend so much, but we don't know what the system will look like. It will be a little bit different. So you don't really know. So teams aren't really sure how they will have to operate in 2027 until a new collective bargaining agreement is reached. So I'm sure agents are wondering what kind of effect players are, and I'm sure owners, I think everybody is, because you don't know what system will be in place. I don't know. Good question, though, and unfortunately, it's something that we are going to talk about probably more than we want to as the season rolls on. George says the Giants should try and get Framber or Ranger Suarez if you're going to give up a draft pick and $500,000 in international money. So those are two guys that are going to get big money. Framber Valdez is very good. Ranger Suarez is very good. both left-handers, still young enough where you could give them a 5 or 6 year deal and feel somewhat comfortable. But they're going to get big money. If you're okay doling out, 150 million, and I'm just throwing that number out there, it could be more, who knows? You are going to get two very, very good pitchers, either of those guys. I just don't know that the Giants are going to do that. Whether they should or shouldn't, that's a little bit of a different story. But we'll see. We'll see. It would be typical of the Giants to sign Tony Goslin or Dustin May. Yeah, well, I guess my point is sometimes you gotta give that a shot if it doesn't cost you too much. I mean, listen, if it's an outlandish number, then it's different. It's a risk reward. There's no question about it. And I'm not saying they're going to do that. It was just another option to get somebody like May, who's got a quality arm and quality stuff. He just has kind of, hasn't bounced back from the injuries and that type of thing. But if you can catch a break and get a little luck with a guy, it turns out to be great. But we'll see. We'll see. Preferably a starting pitcher with a minimum of 2 years control, since I think the Giants are at least 2 years from seriously contending. So Bake That Dose says, if you're going to get somebody, let's keep him let's get a guy who we know is going to be here for 2 or 3 years, which I tend to agree with. But yeah, it depends on the guy too, right? I mean, yeah, it's tough. You don't want to have to try to go out and get 2 or 3 starting pitchers. You just don't. But again, that's where that last thing I talked about comes into play with the young pitchers stepping up. God, that would be huge for them. I mean, it really, really would be. Let's see. Good stuff here from everybody. A lot of people talking about the Japanese pitcher. I think is it Amai? I think that's how they pronounce his name. He's supposed to be terrific. One of 2 or 3 of those Japanese pitchers that they're coming over. They're coming to the big leagues here in the States, and they'll probably be successful. But again, there's going to be a bidding war for these guys. And that's the thing. When you're dealing with free agency, you're always dealing with a bidding war, because it only takes 2 to get into a bidding war, 2 teams, and there'll be more than that. So, all right, let's move on. But good stuff, and I appreciate you guys checking in with good ideas, as you always do. So, let me just clear this a little bit here. You got to hang with me. Let's see. There you go. I think my producer Ryan helping me out. He's sharper on this stuff than I am. Things to watch for in the winter meetings. As I said, winter meetings about 3 months away or 3 weeks away. So I got to thinking about what are some things I'm curious about teams are going to do. And so I wrote down some teams and some players, and I'm curious to see what happens. That's something I want to watch for when the winter meetings come. We're all going to keep a close eye on what the Giants are doing and who they're going after and that type of thing. But there's so much going on, and there's so many great stories out there. So I started thinking, well, what are some things that I'm curious about when the winter meetings get started? And I'm curious about the Dodgers. They are going to sign somebody big again. There's no question in my mind. I've said it for a month now. They are going to sign a big bat. I don't know who it's going to be. It could be Tucker, could be Bichette. Who else is not out of the question is Bellinger, Cody Bellinger. I mean, go back to Los Angeles. I mean, if you're the Dodgers can do what they want, right? Which is no fun, but that's reality. But they are going to sign a hitter, and I think they're going to sign some type of reliever, probably a closer. Money's not an issue. It's more about putting their lineup together. So I'm just curious who they sign. What position player will they sign? What reliever will they sign? And here's something else to think about. And this is incredibly scary, but they have 4 aces, right? I think most people agree with that. They could put together a package that would make the Detroit Tigers think about Skubal, trading Skubal. There's no question about it. They have young pitchers. We saw Sheehan and Robleski, I believe is his name, a righty and a lefty, young starters that pitched out of the bullpen in the postseason, the Dodgers. You start a trade with 2 young pitchers that are ready to pitch at the big league level. Dodgers got young outfielders in their minor league system. Their minor league system is loaded with young outfielders. You could give them 2 starting pitcher, these young guys. You could give them Pajes, the center fielder. They could put together a package that would be attractive enough to make the Tigers think about trading Skubal. There's no question about it. Now, I'm not saying the Tigers would do it. I'm not saying they should do it, but I would not be surprised at all if they made a run at Skubal. I mean, why not? Why not? He's the best pitcher in baseball. Yeah, you have 4 aces, take 5. I mean, that's the way they can look at these things. So I'm really curious to see how the Dodgers approach this, because they can kind of do whatever they want. And they will do a couple significant things. I'm absolutely positive of that. So that's a team that I'm curious about. And staying in the National League West, I'm curious about the Arizona Diamondbacks. One question there. Will they trade Ketel Marte? Terrific second baseman. He's got a contract that has 5 years and $90 million left on it. So significant money. He's 32 years old. I mean, he's really, really a good player. But they need some young pitching. They need pitching just in general. And they need probably an outfielder. And I talked about this when we did the Diamondbacks preview last week. There's some rumors that the owner has said, we need to maybe reduce payroll some. But the general manager, director of baseball operations, whatever you want to call him, he has said, no, that's not the case. So we don't know what they're thinking as far as the financial part of it, but you could get a pretty good return for Ketel Marte. I mean, that's a 3 prospect back guy, Marte. And if a big market team has the funds to pick up a $90 million contract, I think the Diamondbacks they'll probably have to think about it. So I'm curious to see if they trade Ketel Marte and what kind of package they could get for him. Excuse me, because I think it could be significant for a big market team that really needs that type of player. Pete Alonso and the Mets. This is always an interesting thing because it happened last year too. Remember, Alonso was a free agent last year, and he ended up signing a 2-year contract with an opt-out after this year with the Mets, and he opted out, so he's a free agent again. He did not sign that contract till mid-February. Spring training was just about ready to get started, and Alonso finally signed this 2-year contract. He's looking for big money. Can't blame him. He's 31 years old. He's one of the game's best sluggers, right? Pete Alonso. He's a huge fan favorite in New York. They love him. Drafted by the Mets. Just a big, burly, he's just the kind of guy that fans love, right? And he's a force offensively. Listen to his home runs and RBIs the last 4 years. 40 and 131, 46 and 118, 34 and 88, and this past year, 38 homers, 126 RBIs. He's an offensive force. He is a dead middle of the lineup force. Okay, and this guy he does not miss games, to his credit. In his 7 years in the big leagues, He has missed a total of 24 games. He goes to the post, folks, every night. So you're getting a guy who's out there every night, huge offensive numbers, plays hard, not good defensively. He's a liability defensively. It's not going to get better. He's going to be a DH probably fairly soon. Teams would love to have this guy, but my question with him and the Mets, is he going to get that big contract that he probably wants? And when I say big, I guess I'm talking 7 or 8 years for $280 million. Again, I just throw these numbers out there, just, something in that area. Will he get that? He didn't get it last year. He's back in the same spot this year, coming off another great year. But will the Mets ante up for Pete Alonso? Remember that, we know what Soto signed for. That's a kind of a different deal almost. But Alonso's pretty important to that team offensively. Again, a little bit of a liability defensively. And I think he is going to get pursued by a fair amount of other teams. And the Mets aren't afraid to spend money. We know that. Uncle Steve, he'll write checks. He doesn't care. But will they write a big check for Pete Alonso? That is something that I am going to watch closely. The Tarek Skubal situation. I'm fascinated by this. He's a free agent after next year. The Tigers say we're not trading him. We're not. But again, as we said about the Dodgers, if a big market team, if the Red Sox or the Mets or the Dodgers, if they came with one of those packages of 3 or 4 prospects and a player or two in Major League, a 5 or 6 package trade idea, the Tigers have to look at it. But this is the tough spot for the Tigers. Skubal just turned 29 years old. Actually, he's going to turn 29 years old this week. Detroit has come back. They've made the playoffs 2 consecutive years. People are excited again. Tigers fans are excited again. They're coming back to the ballpark. Detroit's a good baseball town again. And a lot of it is because of Skubal. They have a guy. He's their guy. And they can say, we have the best pitcher in baseball. And it's awesome to feel that way as an organization and as a fan base. But the problem then is, can you sign him? Right? And you want to say, Tigers, you got to sign him. And you're probably right. But are they going to do that? Are they willing to go, $250 million for $300 million for the best pitcher in baseball? So as great as it is for the Tigers to have Skubal, they're also in a tough spot. So that is something that I'm going to watch closely for. What happens with Tarek Skubal? Okay. Because teams are going to flirt with the Tigers, man, on trade packages. I mean, they just are. What's going to happen in the reliever market? This is interesting to me because you have some pretty good closers out there, but as the Giants have seen, signing free agent closers is not always a great idea. In fact, for the Giants, it's been a disaster. And teams listen, the 2 teams that played in the World Series, the Toronto Blue Jays and the Los Angeles Dodgers, you can make a very strong argument that they both need a closer in 2026, right? I think that's more than fair. The Giants need a closer. And there's a handful that are out there. Where are these guys going to go? That's what I'm curious about. The reliever market, and not just the closer market, because there's 4 or 5 out there. Will the Giants get one of them? The Dodgers are going to get one of them. They just are. But I'm going to watch really closely where these closers end up. They're going to get a lot of money. They're going to get big free agent contracts. Excuse me. So that's another thing that I'm going to kind of watch for. 2 other teams that are curious to me, keep a close eye on them. The Baltimore Orioles, okay? Orioles, you think, what about the Orioles? I don't know. They're in a different league, whatever. Well, listen, they need pitching bad, right? They had a couple good years, and now they had a bad year this year. They need pitching really, really bad. They need to sign free agents or they need to make trades. Okay. And they have a whole bunch of young position players, good ones, guys that are nowhere near free agency, right? You think about Jackson Holiday, Gunnar Henderson, Adley Rutschman, Kobe Mayo. They got Kauser. They got Westbury. They got Jeremiah Jackson now. It just came up. They got Basalo, the catcher. I mean, they have a whole ton of really talented young position players. None of them are close to free agency. Adley Rutschman's a couple years away. He's the closest. All those other guys are in their first or second year. So do they make a deal and trade one of these quality young position players who are very attractive to teams? I mean, you don't have to pay them anything, right? But to answer their pitching questions, do they trade one of those young position players? Very interesting. So I thought this was like a good idea maybe for the Orioles to do. So what happens? Right before we come on the air, they make a trade. And it's the exact opposite of what I'm throwing out there. Okay? Shows what I know. So just moments ago, the Baltimore Orioles traded a young pitcher, Grayson Rodriguez, who's a very talented, was one of their best prospects, but has been injured a lot the last couple of years, but still young enough to be able to put this thing together and be a very good pitcher. Well, they traded him to the Los Angeles Angels for a hitter, Taylor Ward. So I'm thinking, well, maybe they'll trade a young position player for pitching because they need pitching. And they turn around and they trade one of their pitchers for another position player. Again, shows what I know. But interesting trade. Taylor Ward goes from the Angels to the Orioles for pitcher Grayson Rodriguez. And Taylor Ward, this is a one-year rental. He'll be a free agent at the end of 2026, but he's a good player. I saw him a lot with the Angels when I was doing the A's. And last year, he had a big year last year. He had 36 homers, 103 RBIs. Now, he only hit 228, which is interesting. On-base percentage, not real high. Ton of strikeouts, 175 strikeouts. But still, 36 homers, 31 doubles, OPS of 792. So all in all, a pretty good offensive player in Taylor Ward. So maybe I'm completely wrong on the Baltimore Orioles, what they want to do, but they still need pitching. So don't be surprised if you see them maybe looking at some of those big names, those big free agent guys. But they did get another quality position player tonight in Taylor Ward. So that's keep an eye on the Orioles, see what they do, because they're sort of an interesting team, a team with a lot of this, and they need some of this. And will they trade? We'll see. Lastly, the Oakland A's, or the Sacramento A's, or the A's, I guess is what we're going by. Really good young position players. Real young and really good, right? They score a ton of runs, but still not a good team yet. They need pitching badly. And it's going to be hard, I think, to get a pitcher in free agency because pitchers don't want to go and pitch in Sacramento because it's a minor league park and the ball flies and they just don't want to go there. Last year, they signed Luis Severino, but they overpaid. They gave him $67 million for 3 years just to get him to go there. And Severino went there and he hated it and he bitched about it and he ended up not having a very good year. So I think it's going to be next to impossible to get a free agent pitcher to go to Sacramento. And that's why, a little bit like the Orioles, will we see the A's trade from that very nice core of young position players? And they have some excess there. I think they could do this and try to get a couple of young pitchers that they could plug into a rotation. And that's the thing. That's why it's a weird situation, because a pitcher doesn't want to get traded there. Trust me, pitchers don't want to go there, whether as a free agent or whether they get traded. They just don't. It's just no secret. They don't want to go there. It's a hard place to pitch. It's like Coors Field. So But what will they do? Will they take one of these young position players? I mean, they're not going to, it's not going to be Wilson or Kurtz. It's not going to do. They're not trading those guys, but they have enough where they could maybe dangle a very young position player out there, and see if they could get a couple of young starters. Maybe not a terrible idea if you think about it, but it'd be interesting to see what the A's do, because they are certainly in need of some starting pitching. If they could get some starting pitching, they have a chance to be a decent team. Hey, let's check in with our sponsors first tonight, which we haven't done yet. Starting with Tilden Properties. By investing with Tilden Properties, you'll see quarterly dividends and equity buildup in the real estate market. Bay Area-based family-owned Tilden Properties has been building investment wealth for their clients since 2008. Call 925-209-8558. They take good care of their clients. My family's one of them, and trust me, they'll do good for you. We're also brought to you by the Carrick Real Estate Team, who have been helping families buy and sell homes across the Bay Area with a legacy of client-first service since 1978. Contact Mike Carrick today for a free home sale or purchase consultation. You can call Mike at 925-548-4132. And we're brought to you by Valone Insurance. Valone Insurance, are you tired of being overcharged for your property insurance? Valone Insurance has multiple options for your home and landlord property. Save big money on your property insurance. Call Kyle or Ron at Valone Insurance, 925-433-8271. All right, so appreciate the sponsors as always. Let's get to the comments because we got a bunch of them, which is good. I love talking to you guys. All right, let's see. Let's see what they like. Could the Giants bring back Verlander? Yeah, I think that's a possibility. I don't know. We'll see. I'm just looking. All right. George says, I'd really like the Giants trade for one of Edwin Cabrera, Joe Ryan, or Mackenzie Gore. They all have multiple years of team control. Their salary would allow for the Giants to spend elsewhere. Hey, George, that's a great idea. And you're on the right track, because those guys, Cabrera you'd have for 3 more years, Ryan for 2, Gore for 2. But any one of those 3 guys is going to cost you a pretty strong package of prospects. But any one of those 3 guys would be pretty darn good, I think. All right, hold on. All right. RJM says the Dodgers are not signing a big free agent. All right. I'm going to remember that. Check back with me, RJM, after the winter meetings or at some point, because I'm going to disagree with you. I think they're absolutely signing a big free agent, and maybe 2. That's what I think, just because they can, and they're not technically doing anything wrong. So let's see. George says, I think Ketel Marte is gone. I do too. Yeah. I mean, you feel like they almost have to. I don't want to say they almost have to trade him, but if you want to get some young starting pitching back, then you have to dangle him out there. And he's a good player. I mean, he's tough. We've seen he's tough in the Giants. So be interesting to see. All right, Giants need to be in on Diaz, even if it's only to drive the price up. Okay, well, yeah. I mean, I like the Devin Williams guy, and I know he was not great with New York last year. But if you disagree with me, that's fine. But just look at Devin Williams' numbers when he was with Milwaukee. I mean, he was terrific. Just look it up. Look at his numbers in Milwaukee, and he did have a hiccup last year in New York. There's no question about that. But he's pretty high quality. I would love to see the Giants grab onto Devin Williams. I really would. I don't know that that's going to happen or not, but all right, hold on. Bake that dough says the A's will land pitching once they get to Las Vegas. All right. All right. We'll see. We shall see if that is the case. You see the Giants getting a player like Tommy Pham. Well, not a bad idea. Not a bad idea. They need some defense in the outfield. We're going to get to that maybe next week. I'm very adamant about this, and I know not everybody agrees. They're afraid that, well, you trade offense, you trade Ramos, you're giving up too much offense. It's like, well, did you see their outfield defense last year? It lost them games. It has to get better. If a player can get better defensively, great, but you don't know that until the season starts. That's the problem. If Tommy Pham's a good outfielder, yeah, but I don't know that that's exactly the route they'll go. But that's not a bad question and not a bad idea. All right, so we're going to move on to our next segment, and as I told you, I'm trying to do a kind of a National League West off-season preview as we inch closer to the winter meetings. Did the Diamondbacks last week. Let's do the San Diego Padres. Just kind of take a quick look at them and what I think they may do at the winter meetings and throughout the offseason, what they need to do. Second place last year. Remember, they were only 3 games back of the Dodgers, the Padres. Finished with 90 wins. They were tough on the Giants. They won 10 of the 13 games against San Francisco. Giants never seemed to play well against the Padres the last couple of years. But then they made it to the postseason, lost the wild card series to the Cubs. The wild card series just being that 3-game series. But looking at this team, Mike Schilt, their manager, stepped down. So Greg Stammen is their new manager. I remember Stammen was a right-handed reliever with the Nationals and with the Padres. So he's their new manager, no managerial experience. It's a team that's been to the postseason for the last 6 years, loaded with talent. They did lose some people this year to free agency. Dylan Cease, these guys are free agents now, and I don't know that I've heard that any of them are going to be returning to San Diego. But free agents this year, Dylan Cease, Michael King, so 2 pretty good starting pitchers. Luis Ariz, the kid who plays first base, never strikes out, good hitter. Ryan O'Hearn, Robert Suarez, the closer, is a free agent, and Yu Darvish, elbow surgery, he's out for the year. So there's some people that they're losing, specifically in that starting rotation. You're losing Cease, you're losing King, and you're losing Darvish. And there was some talk about the depth that they have in their bullpen. Maybe see if 1 or 2 of these young guys could switch the rotation. So we'll see. They do have Pivetta still, who is very good this year. Vasquez, J.P. Sears, the lefty who the Giants have seen a lot. Joe Musgrove is back. Remember, he missed all of last year. So they still have the makings of an okay rotation, but probably an area where they need to maybe get another guy, but I don't know if that's their route. The bullpen has the big fella Miller at the end. Their bullpen is pretty good. So I don't know. I mean, as far as pitching goes, they could probably use another starter, but I don't know if that's an area where they're going. I haven't, in looking and reading about the Padres, I haven't heard a lot of talk about what exactly do they want to go get another starter. That would be the one area, because if you look at their position players, they're fairly set. Okay. I mean, look at their outfield, first of all. Their outfield they're going to bring Ramon Laureano back. Okay. They got Merrill, the kid in center, who's terrific, and you got Tatis and Wright. That's pretty set, right? Remember, they got Ramon Laureano, at the trade deadline, and he had an option. They picked it up, so he's going to be there the whole year. You got Machado, you got Bogarts, you got Cronenworth, who can play first or second. You got who's the big guy, the big kid that played in the outfield. So I mean, this is a pretty said Sheets. I'm sorry, Gavin Sheets, and he could DH. He could play some first. I mean, there's not a lot of spots really open position wise, and here's where I don't know if it's a dilemma. I don't know if it's an issue. I think it probably is a little bit for the Padres. There's some rumors about the Padres losing money, um, even though their attendance has been great. Well over 3 million, terrific atmosphere, but they have some major contracts. And I just want you to listen to this. This is what is left on these contracts, not the whole contract. This is what is left. Manny Machado has 8 years and $298 million left. $298 million left on the contract. Fernando Tatis has 9 years, $290 million left on his contract. Xander Bogaerts has 8 years, $203 million left on his contract. Jake Cronenworth has 5 years and $61 million left on his contract. Jackson Merrill has 9 years, $135 million left on his contract. Now, Merrill's the youngest of all these players. So he'll, that may end up being a bargain. Who knows? Yu Darvish has 3 years, $46 million left on his contract. Nick Pivetta has 3 years, $52 million left on his contract. But it's those early ones where, these are huge contracts. But those numbers that I just threw out there to you, contracts ending in 2033 and 2034, and, Bogaerts, 2033, he'll be 41 years old. Machado will be 41. But those numbers that I just gave, amount left on long-term contracts, it's over $1 billion. Okay. So I know we talk about Rafael Devers has 250 million left, and Chapman's got 125, and Willie Adames has 100. They have, the Padres, $1 billion, over $1 billion left on contracts, running for the next 6, 7, 8, 9 years. I think that's becoming an issue. And I don't know of those guys that you could really trade. Now, big contracts do get traded. We've seen it. I don't know. If you were to trade anybody, you'd have to eat a lot of the contract. So, I mean, that's just where they're at. They gave out these huge contracts, right? And about a week ago, announcement came out from the Padres organization that they were going to start examining the possibility of selling the team. And you remember their late owner, Peter Seidler, who passed away a couple years ago. His family is now in charge, the Seidler family. They continue to own a majority of the San Diego Padres, but they're looking into potentially selling the team. That can make things a little strange as well. From a financial standpoint of, if you're selling the team or thinking about selling the team, you want it to be attractive to buyers, you're probably not going to continue to add on to these huge payroll numbers. Okay. That just probably wouldn't be the best way to make what you're trying to sell attractive, to add more debt. And obviously we have a lot of debt. Now, the Seidler family did not come out and say we're definitely selling. They said we're gonna look. We're gonna look. And we don't know, are they going to sell the majority? Are they going to keep the majority and sell minority? We don't know. But that can be an unsettling thing, I think. So I just think the Padres are in a little bit of a weird spot. They're still a very talented team, but there seems to be something there that I don't want to say holding them back, but maybe something seems a little off. And from a roster standpoint, yeah, maybe they need a starter, maybe a mid-range starter. Probably not going to spend big. But what do you think the Padres should do? Because those are things that are kind of staring them in the face. A lot of long-term contracts, a lot of money out there, a talented team, but are they good enough to unseat the Dodgers? Are they good enough to win their first World Series? I found this to be shocking. Okay, and you guys may find it to be shocking too. I looked this up. You look at their lineup, and we saw it, and it seems like a really good lineup, right? The Padres were 18th in the major leagues in runs scored last year. The Giants scored more runs than the Padres. Would you have believed that? They were 28th out of 30 teams in home runs. The Giants hit 21 more home runs than the Padres. And we saw the Giants offense struggle. It'd go good for a while, then it would be a struggle for them. We saw it. I would have never imagined that they scored more runs than the Padres, but they did. They did. And that to me was interesting. I was surprised by that because it sure as hell looks like a pretty good lineup. But maybe not as good as it looks on paper. That's the only thing I can think of. So anyway, that's some of the things staring the Padres in the face. I mean, they have a lot of good players, but is there something missing there? And will they be able to recoup, some of those people that they're losing in free agency? They're still going to be a good team, but are they going to be a really, really good team? That's something that I'm not sure about. But the names are there, but those names have contracts, and again, over $1 billion owed on long-term contracts, and that's an incredible amount of money. It really is. All right, let's get a couple more comments, and then we're going to close out the show. Let's see. Hugh says, hard to sell a team a year before a lockout when you have those contracts. Yeah, and I guess that's kind of my point. You want your product to be attractive, and there's a lot of attractive things about the Padres. You go to their ballpark, it's beautiful, it's packed, it's exciting. But you're going to look at everything, and the books need to be opened, and that's when you find out, I think, a lot of stuff. Our jam says Padres are going to cut payroll. Well, we'll see. We will definitely see. Preller got praised for being bold and aggressive, but to what end? Nothing he's done has panned out. Preller's, it's interesting, and I've had this conversation with people. He wins the offseason. He wins the trade deadline every year. But still, they haven't they put together good teams, but for some reason there just seems to be something missing. And they're still looking for their first World Series. Padres losing Cease, King, Suarez are hurt in free agency and losing setup man. Yeah, Adams is hurt, right? And I don't know if he's going to be back. He hurt his knee. Right? Darvish, hope they trade Tatis. I wish the Giants got him. He would be nice, right? Yeah, he would. Yes, he would. He's a very, very good player. Johnny Owen says the only team from California to never win the World Series. Yep, I think you're right. But that's the Padres, and that's we'll see. Interesting team to watch. All right, let's finish up the show, and we're going a little long tonight. I just had a lot of stuff I wanted to cover with you guys. So we are going to do the big shift of gears, and we're going to get to our NFL segment. You guys said you like to see a good NFL segment, And so I try to put a good one together each week for you guys. I love it anyways. You know how I feel about the NFL. So let's look back. 49ers get a big win. They beat the Cardinals 41-22. To me, it was they dominate. Cardinals are terrible. Niners look good. Purdy was back. He looked sharp. McCaffrey, 3 touchdowns. Kittle, 2 touchdowns. I mean, that's sort of the perfect scenario, right? For the Niners. McCaffrey doing his thing. Kittle's back doing his thing. Purdy's back. He looked really good. It was such a weird game, though, because at no point in that game were you worried that the 49ers were going to lose. I watched you. Were you ever worried? There was nothing that ever happened that made you go, oh, boy. It just wasn't the case. But yet, it was such a strange game because Arizona outgained San Francisco 488 yards to 281. It was just, the Cardinals up and down the field, and then they'd have a penalty. They'd move back. They'd gain more yards and another penalty. It was just so strange that those numbers are there, yet it was the 49ers that completely dominated the game. And quite frankly, they really did. But the Cardinals, I can't figure them out. 17 penalties Arizona had. And that was the point. The point is, they move up, have a couple nice drives, and then the penalty move back, then they move up again, and then a penalty. It was a very bizarre game, but a very well-played game by the Niners. And then the big game in the NFC West Sunday, of course, was the Rams. They hang on and beat Seattle 21-19. Seattle had a shot, 61-yard field goal at the horn, but it was no good. So the Rams continue to roll along. What is that? Five wins in a row for the Rams, I think. Let me check. I got their stuff right here. Yeah, 5 wins in a row. So the Rams are hot. They're really good. They'll host Tampa Bay this Sunday. Seattle will go to the Titans. But 2 really good defenses, if you think about it. The Rams, everybody talks about Stafford and Devontae, all their Puka, and they get really good. Their defense is really good. And so is Seattle's defense. So it was kind of a defensive battle. But the Rams win with Matthew Stafford, who may be the MVP frontrunner. He threw for only 130 yards. But again, it was their defense that won this game for him. Darnold threw 4 interceptions. So 2 good teams, and that's what the Niners are kind of looking up at. Seattle and the Rams, good defensive teams. So we'll see how this all works out. But the NFC West, Rams are 8-2, Seahawks 7-3, so 1 game, and then the Niners are 7-4, so they're a half game behind Seattle, and then Arizona is 3-7. But remember, the Seahawks and the Rams, they will play again. They'll play Week 16 up in Seattle, so that'll be interesting. So they have another clash to go. And then in the playoffs, and this is kind of what I want, because now it's time. I mean, we got 6-7 games left. Now it's time to start looking at this, and we're going to concentrate on the NFC playoff picture. Philadelphia is the number 1 seed. Number 1 seed, of course, gets a bye. Only the number 1 seed gets a bye. The Rams are 2. The Bears lead the NFC North with a 7-3 record. They are the 3rd seed. Tampa Bay's 4, Seattle's 5, Green Bay 6, and the Niners right now are the 7th seed. That's the final spot in the postseason. So they're hanging on. Good record at 7-4. But remember, the 7th seed, when come playoff time, plays the number 2 seed in the first round. Now that's this grouping is going to change some in the final month and a half of the season. But so. Now, going to this week, this is a very, very interesting game. You didn't think much about it, right? You never thought that this would be an important game. But on Monday night, the Niners host the Carolina Panthers. And you're thinking, all right, we're good there. We're good. But the Carolina Panthers are 6-5, and the Carolina Panthers are 1 game behind the Niners in this playoff picture. So this becomes a huge game. The Panthers are playing well. I mean, they really are. They're only a half game behind Tampa Bay for the division lead in the NFC South. So you're thinking, where the heck Carolina, where'd they come from? But they got a good running back. Bryce Young, the quarterback's playing better. Their defense is good. You just don't know a lot about them. But this is a huge, huge game in this NFC playoff picture. Even though it's toward the bottom, 7, 8, 9, the seeds, but now you got Carolina and the Niners. We never imagined that this would be an important playoff picture game maybe a month ago, but now it is. Now it is. And so I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to a good where it's like these games are so important now. And the Panthers have put themselves in this. So that's what's fun. So you look at the Niners, right? They're at 7-4, and this is what they have left. The Monday night game against the Panthers. Okay. And then they go to the Browns. That's a game you should win. And then they get a bye week, which is great. And you get a bye week a little bit later in the year. That's nice. And then they finish with they play the Titans at home. That's a game you probably should win. And then it gets tough. You're at the Colts. You play home to the Bears, and you play home to Seattle. So you got a shot here with Carolina, the Browns, and the Titans. Okay. Boy, if you could win those three, now you're in this thing big time. The final 3 games are going to be tough. Colts, Bears, Seahawks. And then that's it. That's it. So there's only 6 games left for the Niners. So anyways, that's where we're at with NFL after week 11, cruising into week 12. And again, always fun to talk NFL. I love the NFL. And this is a great time of year because, now you kind of see the haves and the have-nots. And the Niners are in this thing. It may be tough to get up there with Seattle and challenge for the division lead because now the Rams are 8-2. So that lead is pretty significant. But you can climb yourself, into the 6th seed or maybe the 5th seed. So it's going to be great. It's going to be fun. And every game is, every game's so huge when you get into the end of November and into December in the NFL. So that's where the Niners are at. And they continue to be fun to watch, a little puzzling at times, but all in all, it's been a good season so far, fighting through all these injuries. So that's where we're at in the NFL. Tried to cover as much stuff as I could tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. Lots of baseball talk. And a couple of things I wanted to tell you from my producer, Ryan, who does a terrific job. He is going to start putting timestamps on our live shows. And I think that's going to help everybody pick out what they want to see, the segments they like to look. I'd like to do my shows in segments, as you know, but he's going to be doing that to make it a little bit easier for you to maybe pick some stuff you want to listen to, pick a segment you want to listen to, pick a subject matter you want to listen to. So we'll start doing that for you guys. And we're back tomorrow. Jeremy Affeldt is going to join me. He's written a book. We're going to talk about that, catch up with Jeremy, get his thoughts on the Giants. Tomorrow night's show is going to be at 6 o'clock. Okay, so join me at 6. Jeremy lives down in Texas, so it'll be 8 o'clock his time. So again, we'll be back to you tomorrow night on the Glen Kuiper Show, 6 o'clock with Jeremy Affeldt. So that's it for tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. And once again, our show is brought to you by Tilden Properties. As an investor, one of the best places to put your money is California's multi-family real estate. Tilden Properties is Bay Area-based and family-owned, and they are good people. They want your investment money, and they will make money for you. Call them at 925-209-8558 or go to their website, look at the catalog, tildenproperties.com. And by the Carrig Real Estate Team, whether you're moving up, downsizing, or making your first home purchase, trust the Carrig Real Estate Team to guide you home. Contact Mike Carrig today. He will give you a free home sale or purchase consultation. You can contact Mike at 925-548-4132. And the website is carrigteam.com. And last but certainly not least, Valone Insurance. Are you tired of being overcharged on your property insurance? Contact Valone Insurance. Save big money on your property insurance. Call Kyle or Ron at Valone Insurance, 925-433-8271. That's it for tonight's show, everybody. It was a big one. We covered a whole bunch of stuff, and we'll be back with you tomorrow. Hope you liked it. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Love your comments. Keep them coming. We'll see you tomorrow night at 6 o'clock with Jeremy Affeldt on The Glen Kuiper Show. Thanks for joining me, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow night.